Hello, this is the OracleShariananda, and I wish to welcome you to yet another of our segments on trance journey and education. Tonight, in honor of the Kwanzaa season, which follows the Christmas season directly, it is my desire to try to bridge the gap from the Kwanzaa celebrations of our traditional past as African Americans with the new thought movement of the current age. And in doing so, I will try to do a reading for each of the 7 days of Kwanzaa for 5 segments of the community. The family and traditional unit to whom the Kwanzaa celebration originally belongs, the global or world community, which I am very interested in seeing work through some of the principles of Kwanzaa, as well as the spiritual or metaphysical communities from whom I will draw my principal framework for discussing the Kwanzaa celebration in the light of new thought and this new age of thinking. I will also look at the individual couple and one individual. So contrary to tradition, Kwanzaa may be celebrated in community by African Americans in a very specialized celebration. But it can also be celebrated among those of us who are in the global community and care to expand our world in terms of its unity, its self-determination, the collective work we do to prove that we are indeed the world, the collective economics that we use, which in some ways we are developing even now as we stand in our streets as a part of the Occupy movement. We also can expand our global community by looking at our purpose through our own creativity and faith. And those are principally the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. So we will be looking, as I've said, at 5 categories and the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. So let's start at the beginning. We are talking about tonight the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa starts on December the 26th, immediately the day after Christmas, and it runs through January the 1st. The word Kwanzaa is a Kiswahili word, which means first fruits of the harvest, and that is said in Kiswahili as Nguzo Saba. In years past, particularly in the 1960s, Reverend Ron Karenga at that time thought perhaps that the commercialization of Christmas, such as it was, represented a hardship on the black community, which in some cases did not have the economic stature to spend great amount of monies to buy gifts and presents for those who one loved. This is not to say the community at large was at any deficit, but there was a need. And so in the 1960s, Reverend Karenga developed Kwanzaa as a kind of wholesale celebration for each of 7 days of the week, starting with December 26th, and as I've said, running through January the 1st. The 7 principles of Kwanzaa are as follows. Umoja, which is spelled U-M-O-J-A, and Umoja is a unity, and its success starts with unity of family, unity of community, unity of nation and race. So that was the first principle. The second principle was Kuji Chagalia, and it is for self-determination. Self-determination is being responsible to ourselves to create our own destiny. The third principle of Kwanzaa is Ujima, and it's collective work and responsibility. And it's meant to help the community at large build and maintain its community, to work together and to help each other. And that is a principle, of course, worth saving. The fourth principle is Ujama, and Ujama is collective economics. to build, maintain, and support our own stores, establishments, and businesses. Now, in the 60s, as you know, many of us were fighting for civil rights, fighting for equality, and fighting for a sense of economic importance and stability so that we ourselves might pull ourselves up from some of the lower places in society and have control over our destinies. So that brings us to the fifth principle, which is Nia, purpose. The purpose of Kwanzaa was to give us a focus and a vision, to give us a sense that we could work together, that we did in fact have the power, the strength, and the thought as a nation of people. So the purpose was to restore African American people to their traditional greatness and to also really honor those who came before us. And there were many who fought the battles that needed to be fought, say in slavery, as with the Underground Railroad and many of those freedom papers that were written, in order to allow us to move into personhood and citizenship. And so our purpose, again, is needful to be reestablished. In that same sense, we have the sixth principle, which is Kuumba. Kuumba is creativity. And we use our creativity and our imaginations to make our communities better and to leave them better than we have inherited them. And so I am now representing the principle of Kuumba, even though this is not the sixth day of Kwanzaa. But my creativity is to, as I've said, bridge the gap between tradition and the new age. We're trying to bring those thoughts together so that we may all work together to have a better world and have a sense that we all belong inside the same bubble of forward motion and transcendence on this planet. The seventh principle is Imani. Imani means faith in Kiswahili. It means believing in our people, our families, our educators, our leaders, and the righteousness of the African American attempt to become whole and complete and as equal a citizen as any other. Now, many will say, well, this is a passé discussion, largely because we have an African American president, President Barack Obama, at this particular time in history. But this tape is not meant to reiterate nor to hold in place Kwanzaa as we have known it. We want to honor our traditions and keep them before us. But we do not want to stand in one place and not develop ourselves. So the point tonight is to, as I've said, bridge the two worlds, the principles of Kwanzaa, the purposes of Kwanzaa with New Age thought and the kinds of realizations that can allow us to move upward and outward into our highest and best destiny. So, I would like to start with sharing with you some New Age thought. Now, principally, in every New Age, there are some things that stand out more largely than others. So I am using the Tarot tonight, the T-A-R-O-T, which is a system of divination that I have learned to use across many decks of cards. And tonight, as I've said, I will be doing some readings for in the history or the tradition of Kwanzaa for the family, for the community, for the globe, that is our world at large, for our spiritual and metaphysical communities, for the couple, and for the individual. So I wanted to talk about the Tarot itself. Now, the Tarot, by and large, was developed in Egypt, and it has a great long history, and that incorporates a kind of court order, starting with what they call the major arcana. And the major arcana are several important areas of life and living. Let's say, for example, the Hanged Man. You would see such a card in a deck, and it would represent transition. So we are talking tonight about various archetypical conditions for humanity. And in the next video, I will introduce those decks. But for this one, we're just talking about the history and Kwanzaa for the 21st century. So in using the tarot, one has the major arcana, which in and of itself has, as I said, various names for the 22 cards or so that are in it. And so they include the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the High Priest, the Lovers, the Chariot, the Strength card, the Hermit card, the Medicine Wheel, Justice, Suspended Person, Death, Temperance, Pan, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the World. And then after those several big categories, we have lesser categories under which we are governed by the elements of the earth. So one is air, and often in tarot decks, swords will represent air. Some decks use crystal, such as does the Voyager deck. Some decks use another kind of sword. They may say baton or spear. Some tarot decks, all tarot decks seem to use the water for cups. And cups represent the emotions and also moving energies. All tarot decks tend to have a card that represents the earth, which is often pentacles, but it may show up as coins, or as in the Voyager deck, it will show up as worlds. And then there is fire, which is represented by wands. And in some decks, the wands will show up as worlds or another symbol. But in any case, these are essentially representations of the earth and the earth's connection to our existence here on the planet: fire, air, earth, and water. So these are the traditions that we're going to be looking at and looking through. I have given you a general overview of the tarot and of Kwanzaa. And now I am going to sign off for this video. And in the next video, I will introduce Kwanzaa and the decks that we will be using. So I will talk to you about the decks as we go. One other thing I'd like to say to you before I go, that if you would like to reach me for a reading after you've heard the work that I do tonight, or if you'd like to talk to me more about the Kwanzaa tradition and how I perceive it blending with the new thought and the new age as we perceive it, please do not hesitate to contact me at OracleShariananda@gmail or P.O. Box 3783, Merced, California 95301. You may also reach me by phone at 209-358-4850. Thank you very much for participating with me, and stay tuned for our next segment of Kwanzaa and New Thought.